What gap in the market did you see that made you to launch Streamline BioOps?
Since I've been in the startup community and I've worked with different startups and been in a startup myself, one of the things I have noticed is,
What are the first three operational priorities you recommend to a biotech startup just getting off the ground? Welcome to Life Science Insights Podcast. I'm Sandil Karunanidhi, and today we're exploring operations, AI, automation, and innovation in biotech and life science companies. Our guest for today is Rachel Reboulet, founder of Streamline BioOps, a company specializes early stage and growing biotech and life science companies build a smart, scalable operations. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so can you start by telling us a bit about your background?
Sure. My background, I've been working in life sciences and the biotech community for about 15 to 20 years now. I've started off working in um, laboratories and academia. I moved into industry working with larger groups, setting up the operations, managing teams. And then I've also worked in the startup community, helping to build a biotech startup in the greater Chicago area. Part of that was building the laboratory, quality management systems, hiring the teams, working with the commercial team, doing a lot of training in those aspects. And I also have, in regards to education, I have my bachelor's degree in biology from Ohio State, and then I have an MBA from the University of Cincinnati. So I have a lot of experience, and I've been doing this for a while.
Oh, that's an inspiring journey.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Uh, what gap in the market did you see that made you to launch Streamline BioOps?
Since I've been in the startup community and I've worked with different startups and been in a startup myself, one of the things I have noticed is the CEO and the founder. The main focus is on the innovation, the technology, getting that to the market quickly, focusing on the science piece of it. And the operations piece kind of takes a little bit of a backseat, or we'll get to that later. And kind of that's where my company comes in. What we do is we do help with the operational piece and make that kind of a focal point for our business so that CEOs and founders can focus on on the science, on the innovation, on the breakthroughs, and not have to worry as much about the operational piece.
Wow, that's an insightful gap that you identified.
Oh, thank you.
In your own words, what does smart, scalable operations mean for biotech and life science companies?
Yes. Well, smart scalable operations has to do with looking at the operations at different levels the companies are in, looking at the size of the company, looking at the budgets of the company, and the direction the company wants to move in, and building those operations for those different points in time. So if you are a small Series A company, you're not going to have the same operations as like a post B series company. But you want to be able to grow up, so to speak, to that point. You want to be able to have those scalable operations pieces in place so that as your company grows, your operations grows with your company. So, run into a situation where you have to pay a lot for any kind of rework, major changes. It could be really problematic.
Wow, I love the way you framed the smart and scalable operations.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Was there a project or moment when you realized operational inefficiencies were holding biotech companies back?
Yes, I can say there was one big project that I was working with for the startup company, and all of the operational pieces were kind of created as like different entities. So the laboratory had one type of software that they used. The quality had another software they used. Commercial team had a CRM that they were using.
Yes.
You have all these different things, and there wasn't, I think it was a lot of people were wearing many hats at the time, like any startup does, but there wasn't a lot of focus on how those things can work together.
Oh,
And it would have really benefited the company to think about things early on, how those digital systems can work together. Is there going to be any API capability to connect those pieces? What are the processes going to look like? And think of operations as a whole versus as each separate entity. And what ended up happening with that, it caused a huge delay. Expensive coders had to be brought in to connect those different pieces. So timelines were kind of set back because of that. And if things were thought of maybe beforehand, what those scalable processes would look like and what was needed and how those different digital systems work together, then it would have saved a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of headaches.
wow. So that's a practical way to break it down.
Yes.
Okay. It's interesting. What does an ideal biotech operation framework look like in your opinion?
Well, I mean, it really depends on the company. It really depends on their core competencies and what they're trying to do. But the ideal situation would be um, thinking about operations proactively versus a reactive response.
Okay.
So planning from the very beginning on what exactly you're going to need at different stages of your company.
Okay.
Are you going to need the basics, the SOPs? When you're, a baby company, you're going to need these types of operations. When you become a teenager, you're going to need these. And
Hmm.
if you're an adult company, you're going to need these other things. So it's thinking about what operational needs are from the very beginning and planning for those things.
Okay. Interesting. But
Yeah.
how do you help founders decide which process to build in-house or outsource?
All right. Well, a lot of that has to do with um, the company at the time,
Companies, right?
their
Hmm.
costs, I mean, their cost, compliance, and the size of the company and the budget at the time. So, part of what we do as a company, Streamline BioOps, is to come in and kind of situate what things you can do in-house, what you should outsource.
Okay.
For example, if you have a lower budget, of course, you're not going to want to implement a LIMS system. Uh,
Yes.
but what you might want to do is start off by having an electronic laboratory notebook,
Hmm.
some sort of thing to keep data into one place, to keep things connected. You might want to outsource any kind of routine testing using a CRO. You might want to outsource doing any kind of audit compliance work. It
Okay.
just really depends on the company.
Okay. That is interesting. Uh, what are the first three operational priorities you recommend to a biotech startup just getting off the ground?
Okay, first thing you should do. You've got you're the founder, you're working on your main competency, your science, your breakthrough, work on that. But also keep in mind the operational pieces you're going to need throughout the entire growth of your business.
Okay.
Start keeping it small. Start with an Excel sheet, what you need right now, what you think you're going to need in 5 years. Create kind of a living document of what exactly you're going to need as your company grows up. That's one thing I think you need right away. Number two, I would start thinking about hiring needs, who you're going to need, what those people look like. Start thinking about those needs as well. And then also, when it comes to planning, I would think about what systems you're going to need and how those systems are going to work together as you grow.
Okay. Yeah, you made it right. So the interesting way you mentioned like the priorities, right? That is really the good one to start, right?
Yeah, I really think so. Being in a startup myself, I get it. You're kind of flying the plane and building it at the
Right.
same time.
Yes.
So you're wearing a lot of hats.
Yes.
You've got a lot going on, and I know it's sometimes things fall to the wayside, but operational needs have to be a focal point along with your scientific breakthrough.
That's true.
Um, you don't want to have any costly things that happen in the long run. You want to avoid any compliance issues in the future. You want to keep all those into the front of mind so you don't run into problems in the future.
Right. How do you ensure scalability without creating unnecessary bureaucracy?
Well, for me, it's not about bureaucracy or like adding complication into things. I like to simplify things. I like to come in and the simplify the operations as needed. It might be simple SOPs, it might be some simple processes, but really it's all about making everything simple so that you don't have to worry about bureaucracy and red tape.
Yeah, you rightly mentioned about that. Let's shift our focus towards the technology or innovation in operations.
Mhm.
I have a few questions on that.
Sure.
Uh, Everyone is talking about AI. How is AI, automation, and digital transformation impacting bio operations today?
Yeah, well, AI and automation and digital needs, those are things that are here to stay.
Yeah,
And you have to learn to work with those things and how
right,
to use those things to the benefit of your company.
right.
And I think there's a huge benefit to them as well. You can move things faster, you can cut costs, streamline operations, and essentially get to the market quicker than others. And I think the people that adopt those digital needs, the AI technology, are going to be the ones that succeed overall.
Okay, yeah. And can you share some of the example that you went through?
Sure. For an example, there was a LIMS I was helping to implement at one point in time, and
Okay.
it really, everything at the time was done on Excel sheets.
Oh,
Excel sheets, everything, which I understand completely. When you're a smaller company, you don't have the money to afford the limbs. When you're smaller, it makes sense. But as you're growing, you need to implement something that streamlines your operations. So part of that was putting a limb system in to connect the lab equipment with the like the sample processing piece, the part
okay.
that connects the lab equipment with reporting the data, and all of those things took something that would take manual process 30 minutes and it made it into about a 5-minute process. So, um, yeah, so it's about implementing those pieces.
Okay. But that technology adoption that dramatically improved the efficiency of the client?
Oh,
What do you mean?
yes, by
Okay.
by about tenfold.
Tenfold. Oh,
Yes, there's
okay.
no way. They would have had to hire, I don't know how many more people, cut that out.
Wow.
But I don't know how they would have to hire a huge workforce of
Okay.
individuals in order to do the work that a limb system could do. So essentially, it did end up saving them quite a bit of money and a lot of time. Um, so if you are at that post B, series post B, or a larger company and you're scaling, it's definitely something that you need to incorporate.
Oh, interesting. What operational tech stack do you recommend for early stage biotech companies?
Early stage companies, I would say don't get too expensive. I'm sure people don't have the funding, so they can't. So, um, I would say look at a project management tool, MS Project. I always like Microsoft Project, something that keeps you organized. You want to keep all your files in one place, so I would use, OneDrive, Google Drive, one of those. You want to have good communication between your people, so I would use if there's a couple people you can text, but I always like Slack. If
Slack,
you have like a group of people, it's faster than
faster,
email. Emailing people, sometimes things get missed, but if you have it in a Slack form, it's not going to get missed. Those communications are going to be answered.
answer.
Um, Electronic lab notebook, just to keep the data all in one place and start
Okay.
integrating those digital needs into your laboratory. If you do have a laboratory, if you're looking at some sort of inventory procurement, I liked Quartzy. It's inexpensive
Mm,
and you can use it to keep track of all your inventory.
okay.
Um, what else? Quality management system. Even if you can't afford kind of a digital QMS at this point, just have some SOP templates, start building out that quality system and kind of try to standardize the formatting of the SOPs to have that already.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Mhm.
Uh, how do you work with the scientific leaders who may not have the formal business or operational training? What is your take on that?
Oh, well, that's okay. They don't need to have the
Okay.
formal, business or,
Training,
operational training.
operation.
That's kind
Okay.
of where my company comes in and helps them kind of take care of those particular issues that they have. Um, so we partner with the companies. We want to be in there as a partner and help build the operational things that they need in place,
Okay.
and then take their vision and kind of build that gap between their vision and the operational infrastructure that's needed to bring their vision to life.
Okay. Nice. Uh, what's your approach to aligning the cross-functional teams from lab scientists to regulatory affairs to the business development?
Well, there needs to be a lot of
Lot of
cross-functional leadership and communication. As part of the example I gave about all the separate groups, all the entities having all their own little digital platforms, and then
right.
having an issue with integrating all of them together,
Mm,
um, there has to be kind of a working roadmap
okay.
where all those groups at least get together and have an idea of what's going on in all of those areas and how that's going to affect them
Mm,
and the company as a whole. So those conversations need to start and they need to, continue on as the company goes. But having something that each group can work off of, knowing the scientific timeline, business development's going to need to know what those timelines are. Quality is going to need to know what those timelines are. Everyone needs to know kind of the timelines for quality, when things will be up and running, and when they'll be able to get where they need to go. And then everyone needs to know the timelines for the business development. So it's important to have those conversations and work off the same roadmap as a whole.
right. It's important point to be noted across teams, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, you need to have that. It's very important to
Yes.
to have everyone meet as a
Okay.
group or the leaders in that group, stakeholders to meet on a regular basis and hear what everyone's doing and kind of work on that all in one plan
Mm,
together.
got it. Makes sense. How do you handle change management in a culture that resistant to new process? It always happens, right?
Oh yeah. It always happens.
Right.
There's a lot of people who are resistant to change, and I
Mm,
understand that.
mm,
Um, a lot of what I do is when I work with people for change management is listen to them. There's a
mm,
lot of listening that happens into, what their fears are, what they really would like to see in a change. Hear those stakeholders early on so that I can take their fears and kind of change them into something that shows them, okay, well, you're scared of this change. But with this change, it's going to make your life better. You're going to see fewer errors. It's going to be faster for you. It's going to be something that particularly could cost less for your department. So a lot of it is keeping that communication, having stakeholder buy-in, letting them feel like it's a collaborative process versus I'm just doing this to you. So I like to keep that communication open.
Yeah, always change management is tough in most other places. So we have to handle this.
Exactly. Everyone has to deal with the change management. And, there are quite a few people that are, and I understand it. You've been doing something for a long period of time and you're used to how things are.
Right.
It's scary. Change is
Scary.
scary.
Change is scary.
So basically, you need someone to sit there and listen to what you need,
Yes.
listen to what your fears are, and make it better.
Okay, sure. That's a good way. Uh, you have been in industry for a very long time. What's the most common mistake the biotech companies make when building their operations?
When building the operations,
Yes.
I think the biggest one that I noticed is just putting operations off to later.
Okay.
Spending a lot of time focusing on, the main pieces, which makes sense. I mean, your scientific breakthrough, you have a technology, you're going to focus on that, but kind of putting operations as um, an afterthought, something that will get done when it needs to get done, instead of, okay, well, everything needs to be done in tandem.
Mm.
You have the breakthrough, you have you know, technology or your invention or your product, but also you have to think about those operational pieces in tandem with that so that you can get to the market faster and you can get there without, problems in timeline or um, expensive changes.
Okay. Can you list some of the common operational mistake that you've seen?
The most common that I see are people the being reactive versus proactive when it comes to operations.
Okay,
So,
sure.
um, doing things because they need to get done versus, okay, having a plan.
How do operational strategies differ between a seed stage startup and a post Series B biotech company?
Well, yeah, with there are differences. When you're a seed or Series A, you're not going to have the budget, and
Okay,
you don't need
right.
the budget to start building your operations into your company. Um, you basically just need some basic XOPs at that stage. You might need electronic notebook. You may
Mm.
need some very inexpensive processes in place that are easily scalable as time goes
Right,
on. So you don't have to spend as much money
right.
as you would have like a post B. Your focus on a post B is going to be on commercialization. It's going to be on scaling your company.
Mm.
And you have to think about how to do that in mass. So you're going to need systems in place. You're going to need to streamline those systems by having an ERP system in place. You might need a CRM like Salesforce in place. You may need a LIMS in place. And those things, of course, are necessary to scale to get to
Right.
commercialization, the impact that you want. But as a smaller company, you don't need to go to that level.
How do you see the role of operations evolving in biotech over the next decade?
Well, what I see as the operations is going to be a strategic driver for growth for the
Mm.
company.
Okay,
Um, it's of course, it needs to go hand in hand with the technology, the product you're selling, or the drug that you're creating. And those things need to go hand in hand. So it's going to be a strategic driver for the company,
okay.
and having that operations and the structure in place
Mm.
early and having a plan throughout the process is going to allow you to get there faster than other companies. So basically you're going to need those things in place in order to compete.
How do you see the role of operations evolving in biotech over the next decade?
All right. Well, I see it as being a strategic driver for growth for a company. Um, Integrating and adopting different operations and having the system in place, having a proactive approach to integrating those operations for your company ultimately is going to be the driver for if your company is going to so-called win or not.
Right.
if you don't have those things in place, if you are not adopting those different operational needs or digital needs, your company could potentially fall behind, and then you'll
Okay.
have other competitors who do adopt those things. That's going to be problematic. So,
Problematic.
yeah.
Okay. Uh, my last question for today is, what's your vision for Streamline BioOps in the next 5 years? Hmm.
Right now, our focus is mainly on the operational needs of a company,
Okay.
and that has to do with, from my own experiences, from professionals that I'm working with, their experiences, and what we okay. Um, Right now, well, currently with our company, the main focus is operations.
Okay.
Operations in the biotech space with CROs, with um, different startup organizations, helping them with their operational needs, whether it be anything to do with compliance, anything to do with lab operations, anything to do with digital, um, streamlining the digital needs of the company, implementing those needs. Anything operations will take care of on our end of the company.
Thanks for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. It was truly an interesting and insightful discussion. And thank you again for your time and sharing your expertise with us. Thank you, Rachel.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I really appreciate it.